Curious to hear music by Lunar Composition Lab alums? Check out E4TT's annual concert of music by women and non-binary composers, Midnight Serenades, on Saturday, January 25th. Welcome to For Good Measure, an interview series celebrating diverse composers and other creative artists, sponsored by a grant from the California Arts Council. I'm Nanette McGuinness, Artistic Executive Director of Ensemble for these times. In this week's Lunar Module episode, we continue talking to E4TT Lunar Composition Lab commissioned composer Lucy Chen, who we spoke to in May 2024.
Are there other aspects of music that interest you, or music and art, or,
Yeah, I think just in music, like a lot of people, especially people my age, we just love listening to music, like all sorts of genres. I especially really love jazz, and I actually love it because I sometimes don't know what's going on. Like I feel like when I listen to a classical piece, I can usually tell like, oh, this is a cadence that happens and this is why. But in jazz, because I'm very classically trained, I'm not a jazz musician. Sometimes they'll play something and I'm like, what? Like that sounds so cool, but I have no idea what just happened. And that's why I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really want to learn more about jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And I also just love listening to a bunch of different genres like 70s, 80s, or even like pop. Yeah, I just love discovering new music in general. Like Spotify is my best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I listen to all sorts of music. I'm fairly omnivorous on the subject.
Yeah. I'm also like one of my classes right now is about writing, and then our topic is about like how health and wellness have to do with music. So I've been thinking about different aspects of music for a while, and not just from my own standpoint, but also kind of like academic, historical standpoint. And what I've learned is that so many cultures used to use music, or they still do. They use music to like remember their stories because it's very easy to remember stuff when they have rhythm and rhyme. Like that's why we remember lyrics so well. And
Correct.
like they've been doing this for like thousands of years. Like they'll use drums or like their own traditional instruments and just tell stories and connect community with the music and the lyrics. And then these lyrics are passed down for like thousands of years. And I
Collective
thought,
memory. Yeah.
yeah, that was just very cool to learn about because it's just like, wow, like music is something that's just truly ingrained in the human experience throughout our existence. And I think that's why we know it's gonna stay too. And that's also why it makes me excited to be a composer, because it's like I'm kind of adding to this timeline of music being used to represent ourselves, this timeline that's been there basically forever. So that's a part of music that will always intrigue me.
Yeah, that's true. For ritual, for collective memory, for healing, music has so
Yeah.
many communal uses. Any thoughts about the piece that you're writing for us?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it a little bit, and I think a lot of I use a lot of music just to write about my own feelings because I also like journaling a lot. So I think there's like a parallel between that. But I've been thinking a lot about like how I've grown in the freshman year of college, since it's like a very turbulent year. You can learn a lot, and it's really like the first year of your life where you can kind of completely choose your own path in any given day, like not go to class or like just do whatever you want. I'm not saying I did that, but it's possible.
That
But
there isn't the parent figure leaning over you going,
yeah, which is good and also bad. But anyways, I feel like this year I learned a lot about myself, and just like from meeting so many people, I've kind of started to figure out who I am and also who I like really want to be like the most. And like I'm starting to find my people, or even defining what my people is. It's like learning more about who I really am. So I was thinking maybe I could write something about that journey. And since I'm using like cello and piano, I could kind of use the maybe the timbre of the cello, like give more clarity to the voice of the cello, to represent like my own clarity of mind when I feel like I'm myself and like with my people and stuff. And also just like the relationship with the cello and the piano and how they can be like discordant or like in tune and how that
Mhm.
could represent different parts of the year. But yeah, I
That
think
sounds
maybe something
interesting.
related to that.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting. Kind of a musical journey through apprentice adulthood.
Yeah,
That sounds great. Do you have a working title? You can say no.
no. But
Yeah.
I was thinking about because for Luna Lab, when I was in Luna Lab, just last year. And the
Mhm.
piece I wrote for that was called 17, and it was about how the age 17 is also a very special age because it's right on the brink of like childhood and adulthood.
Mhm.
Um, as you can tell, I think about time passing a lot. So maybe this piece could be like a little ode to that piece. And because now I'm even more on the, I guess, the adulthood side, or it was
Mhm.
my first taste of it. So maybe I can even like reference some themes from there, or I don't know, do some sort of connection, but also make it new because that's metaphorically what happened to me too. Like a
Right.
new experience.
Right. Yeah. Makes me think of there's a Janice Ian song called 17, I think. You could check that out.
Yeah.
Not for your piece for us, but since you like music from those eras.
Yeah,
But
I thought about the age 17 because so many like songs reference that age, so it must be
Mhm.
special.
Yeah, well, at least culturally in terms of in where adulthood is set to happen in for us, 17 is that brink moment.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Yeah, and as far as the title goes, almost every composer I know, even if they come up with a working title, the title may well change in the process, and an awful lot of them say, "I won't know the title till I'm finished, and then I know the title." So
Yeah, that's usually what I do. I usually don't come up with the title until I finish the piece.
this actually leads well into the next question I wanted to ask you, which was, do you have any mentors, interests, or influences you'd like to share with us? And if you'd like to kind of lead into that, you can certainly talk about your Luna Composition Lab experience or your mentor there. So tell me.
Yeah. I think I have a lot of key mentors throughout my life, and Luna Lab was definitely such a special experience because I think just the whole like community of like women and like gender non-conforming people and not just like a male dominated like environment because usually composing like music composition is kind of like that. And
Yeah.
I didn't even know many composers because I went to like a regular public high school, so it wasn't like an art school. And
Hmm.
then the only composer I knew was this other guy in my grade, and then I knew my conductor, who was also a guy. But just being able to be with like a bunch of women and having such a supportive community, it was like very special. And especially like my mentor, Nina Shaker,
Mm.
she was very just like anytime I had like some sort of question about like, oh, what do I do with this music part?
Hmm.
Or even just a question about like, how do I balance music and like senior year of high school? Because that was also kind of difficult. She would just be able to answer that. And she was also just like very comfortable to like talk with. We would just chat during our sessions and she would be very supportive and give really good ideas. And then I think getting to meet Missy during the actual Luna Lab, that was
Hmm.
really awesome too. Like I just loved her energy and she just seemed like she is like super self-confident and just loves her work. And I remember once she took all the composers to her house in Brooklyn, and they had like a little concert there, and I was like, wow, this is what the music community feels like. It's just like very warm. We're all just together and like making music. And yeah, it was just very special. And I think that was the first time I was really immersed in like a composer community, especially one that's females and like non-binary people.
Hmm.
And it was just like very special. And I was like, wow, I really want to be in spaces like this as I get older. So yeah, that was one very special experience. And some other mentors, I have a lot, but I mentioned that I had been studying piano since I was 4.
Hmm.
And so I actually had the same piano teacher from the age of 4 to my last lesson, like a week before I moved into college.
Wow.
Yeah, and she was like, well, obviously starting piano at age 4, that was my first experience with music ever. And
Uh-huh.
her name is Rosita Mang. She was just such a like supportive and nice and also very funny teacher, while also not letting me off the hook too easily, which I think was good for my growth. But yeah, during lessons, she would just always stress like to don't play because you want to win this competition or be the best
Hmm.
like out of other people. Like don't have a competition mindset. Just really play because you love the music and because you want to just play the best that you can. Like don't worry about other people. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of piano teachers don't really do that, and that's why a lot of kids I know that played piano for such a long time, they just immediately quit after getting out of high school. But I think the reason I didn't, and the reason I started even playing violin and studying composition and the continuing piano and composition in college is because of her.
Hmm.
And she actually just passed away when I started
Oh,
college, which was very sad, but it
I'm
just made me
sorry.
remember more about how much she's impacted me. And I think she is like the biggest reason I am pursuing music.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry for your loss. That's a very special relationship, and clearly she made her mark on you in a wonderful way. So,
Yeah. So in a way,
yeah.
she will never leave because she's always here when I'm being passionate about music.
Yeah. Yeah, that she wanted you to do your personal best and let what you felt and heard in the music out instead of an external norm, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and Missy and Nina are both great. Nina is one of the composers we interviewed.
Oh, awesome.
Thank you for listening to For Good Measure, and a special thank you to our guest, Lucy Chen, for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast by clicking on the subscribe button and support us by sharing it with your friends, posting about it on social media, and leaving us a rating and a review. To learn more about E4TT, our concert season online and in the Bay Area, or to make a tax-deductible donation, please visit us at e4tt.org. This podcast is made possible in part by a grant from the California Arts Council and generous donors like you. For Good Measure is produced by Nanette McGuinness and Ensemble for These Times and designed by Brennan Stokes, with special thanks to co-producer and audio engineer Stephanie M. Neumann. Remember to keep supporting equity in the arts and tune in next week for Good Measure.